Hey, everybody, it's Andrew Morgan, and I'm here with CEO Karl Bickmore of SnapTech IT. Karl, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks, Andrew. Nice to talk to you.
Great to talk to you as always, Karl. Hey, we're going to spend about 10 minutes or so talking about CyberCNS today. And this is a vulnerability management security assessment tool that you've been on the journey with, I think, even pre-alpha code. And you, along now with like 60 other MSP and MSSPs, have really purpose-built this platform for specifically for this industry. So let me turn it over to you and, kind of share out, why you like the platform, how you're going to market with it, and, anything you'd like to add along the way.
Yeah, you bet. Well, you're right. We've been working it for a while, since before it was CyberCNS, before it had the notion of what it is. But we've felt the hole that this product is filling for a long time. It's really hard to address vulnerability management in the MSP space. A lot of the tools are not naturally multi-tenant, or they're quite expensive and very difficult to apply to smaller businesses. Sub 200 users and we have a lot of clients in that space that need better vulnerability management. And so it's been a hole we've been working on trying to find an answer for. And our path has been to work with this team. And very early on, there was this notion that I was a part of, like, hey, let's not just build a tool and then ask the market. Let's get the market in early in the conversation. And we had a bunch of MSPs join us early. And together we've been doing these weekly calls and building the features and making the requests. And it's like a direct path to development. It's been a phenomenal experience. I'm very happy with how this is coming along. And I feel like it's, built by MSPs for MSPs. And I'm just excited to use it in my own MSP. So let me share my screen. I'll show you a little bit of it. We have a demo set up here. This is the demo database you guys gave, or that the CyberCNS gave me access to. And this is kind of what you see when you very first log in. You'll notice the left-hand menu for navigation. And, it starts off with some dashboards and some few things, but, there's a lot of things that I really like about the product. I think at the most basic level is, it's a scanning utility. You deploy probes out as, my opinion, one of the best ways to do it. You can deploy it out in different ways, but probes give you the best information and also catch a machine, whether it's at home, at a Starbucks, or in the office. You're still going to get its vulnerability data back. But we use the product for vulnerability management with our existing customers. We use it for selling assessments for when we're bringing on new customers, or just a straight up assessment, even to an existing customer. And it's brought on a couple of new revenue streams for us. So it's been exciting. We find that very few MSPs are onto this tool yet. I think it's going to grow. We're already seeing lots of more people sign up. But when we work with a client that hasn't had vulnerability scanning before, it's usually a big eye opener for them, because they think that their MSP is doing it. They think their MSP has their RMM tool. They're doing patching of their Windows computers and servers, and that's all they need. But really, this is going to scan everything on the network, not just computers, and it will tell you vulnerability data about any of it. And that's going to show up in the asset list. And, you can see here, like, these are, fake data companies, like picking out this other one. It's got a bigger a list of assets, and you can go through ones and you can see vulnerabilities that are related to them, patch installs, programs that are installed. There's a lot of stuff you can see about the computers out there. And it comes off of a very secure, very lightweight agent that is very easy to deploy. So we actually just write a script in our RMM and deploy out the agent. But you can just put a probe on a Raspberry Pi, or we like to use like an Intel NUC with Windows on it. And just drop it into a location and give it credentials for that customer that are just stored in that particular agent on that customer, and scan that way as well.
Karl,
things I like. Go ahead.
One of the things that I think is important is a lot of the vulnerability scanners out there provide you a heap load of CVEs. Talk to us about maybe just remediation, because there's a difference between here's all your stuff and actually fixing what's most critical.
Yeah, you bet. Well, you run a scan on a customer that's never had this kind of, you'll get thousands upon thousands of found vulnerabilities, both in configuration and on patching issues. But the reality of it is strategically, you have to choose how to go about that, fixing that, because you probably can't do everything. And so, like when you look at the vulnerabilities here, you can see, like, this is this customer as example. You can see it's thousands, or at least it's over 1,000 vulnerabilities, a couple thousand total, I think it's finding. And you can go in and look at the individual ones and see how they're breaking out and what these are in, and decide if you want it, what your best course of action is. But there's also remediation plans, which are really great, because what they'll do is they'll tell you, hey, install this one update and it will hit this many vulnerabilities on this many assets. That is invaluable to us. And so we've really taken the remediation plan as our plan of action on how to go about solving the problem, rather than trying to hit it one vulnerability at a time, which is really untenable. It's a lot of work, and it doesn't, you can't really get there fast enough. So, I mean, that alone is a really nice touch to what the program does. And here's the thing. I mean, look, there are other utilities that will do some really great vulnerability scans. The problem is they're not multi-tenant. They're very expensive, way more expensive than CyberCNS. And in some ways, I find this more effective for us. In fact, in a lot of ways. And so if it was just a vulnerability scanning tool alone, I could use that to sell my customers vulnerability management, or I could use it in our assessments that we're doing, either for a new customer or for some cybersecurity assessment that we do. There's a few different types of assessment. We tend to use CyberCNS for all of those scans now. And it's great. I mean, like, when we're going into a company that's not a current customer, we can just bring the Intel NUC with the probe on it and a few other utilities we like. That's why we like the Windows version, but a Linux Raspberry Pi would be fine too. Drop it into the location and have it scanning away. The only problem is you'll just touch the machines that it can see based on the way the network's set up. So for ongoing management, we deploy probes out everywhere, our agents out to all the systems to collect the data. So that alone is worth more than we're paying for the product. The product is not expensive by comparison to anything else that does that. But then setting aside that, it also has some very cool things that it does around firewall configuration scanning, both internal and external, which I find to be really important. And so not every firewall under the sun is compatible. They're constantly adding more, but most of the main ones that you probably use are in here. So in this example database, there's a FortiGate and a Cisco Meraki. I mean, but look at the things that, this is an authenticated scan. So you set up a user for CyberCNS to do this. And then it will go in and it'll tell you about the groups that are on the system. It'll tell you your OS version. And you can alert on these things if you want. You can look at group membership. You can see the rules that are in place on the firewall. You can see the licensing that's set up, the interfaces and their basic configuration, what's allowed on them. This is like a really good quick look at a configure of a firewall. And that saves us a lot of time when we get that scan working and regularly telling. But then there's also, if you look down here, external scans that you can point it to a public IP address and it will scan from your CyberCNS server, wherever that's hosted, either with CyberCNS or your own self-hosted version. And you get a really great external scan that will tell you about any open ports and vulnerabilities found. And it will even look into the layer 2 and layer 3 stuff on the web servers and look deeper for vulnerabilities. And that's been, once again, that alone, plenty of clients would pay for that for what we pay for this. And so to me, this is a very easy to monetize thing, because the price is so good that you could just sell it on the features of external scans or firewall scanning, let alone vulnerability management, all very good things. And I think that's like one of the problems of CyberCNS is that because MSPs have built it, it has so many like new things that we figured out to do as a bunch of MSPs that it does way more than you expect. Like, it's not just a vulnerability management platform. It also can tell you internal, external scanning. And it can also, for instance, do Active Directory things for you. Like, it can tell you about your groups that are enabled and disabled, what group policy objects are in place, and you can alert on it. So like if somebody randomly gets put into a domain admin group, you can have an alert, create a ticket for you. And your people will be able to go after it. And you can, once again, this is great material for assessment scanning as well, to get the lay of the land of a potential new customer, as an example. And so there's a lot of great information it will grab for you. And there's some nice reports on this as well. And not only is there Active Directory, but there's also Azure Active Directory, which, is a really nice touch, because a lot of us are moving our customers to these kind of cloud only positions and using Azure Active Directory as a directory service. Some are hybrid, some are just Azure. And so it's nice to have a utility that can also scan that. The data is coming up here slowly, but the point is that you get the ability to scan both of those. And also, I would point out that if you connect it to your Azure tenancy or your Office 365, you can also get the secure score and see what things are configured, which is also great for assessment and great for management of a customer. This is all stuff that you just never expect to be in one tool in one place. So one of the reasons why I love it. I mean, you could create alerts specific to your need. I think the reporting's worth taking a quick look at too. You know, many reports you can get an Excel version. I happen to like Excel for a couple of them, like the vulnerability list or the Active Directory list. And so they're really nice Excel, but there's, you know, some of them in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and that's constantly being modified as well. And I'd also point out that there's a really good system for building your own custom reports by grabbing the objects and other reports and simply putting it together. I'd say probably one of the last things to highlight that's unusual that you wouldn't expect, it's a pretty common problem for us, and I think a lot of MSPs, is there's this function called the application baseline. It doesn't look like my test database has much in here, but the point is you can come in here and take a look at all software installed for a customer, and you can look for things and create alerts either on bad things on the list or things missing from the list. And I can tell you a big problem for us is, like, if we don't have, for instance, our RMM agent on a system, then it's blind to our RMM, and we don't know that that tool is not, or that system's not being managed. And I love having this second check that can tell me when a system is missing, say, our AV or missing our RMM. And frankly, this tool, because it does vulnerability scanning and patch check, it can tell you if your patching score in your RMM is real. You know, so it's like a double checker on that. Any of us have been around long enough to use these tools know that sometimes RMM patching is problematic. And so having a tool that you can check on that's phenomenal. Look, there's a lot to this tool. You can do network scans, you can find configuration problems, you know, things like TLS enabled 1.0 or SMB signing, you know, version 1 enabled, lots of CVEs that it can check on the network as well. There's just a lot packed into this product. Excuse me. So I'm excited about it, and I'm looking forward to, you know, going out there and competing in the marketplace with this too, because look, anytime I come into a new customer that opportunity that's never seen a vulnerability scan run in their network, I can run one of these and their eyes are open. They had no idea. They thought things were being taken care of. And unless you have a tool like this, you're never going to know. So for me, it's a big hole in the space, and I'm glad to be part of the people that are helping develop this tool and making this what it is. It's already great. I'm sure it's going to continue to become better. We're still doing those weekly calls. We're still improving the product. So,
Karl, that was great. That was great. Hey, in closing things out, I would just say, look, the macro themes that we are currently living in, whether it happens to be insurance, cyber insurance renewals, right, that are calling out internal, external, and application scanning as part of the approval process, whether it happens to be, you know, states adopting CIS, IG1 for safe harbor. So if you're an organization that adopts that and you have a breach, you can have safe harbor. One of the big things in IG1 is vulnerability management. And we could go on and on. Regulation, yeah. Obviously, you deal with a lot of regulated clients where
regulated clients, they've already been doing it. Now this is just a better, more efficient, cheaper way. And for clients that aren't regulated, you can finally reasonably put something in place. It's more revenue stream for you, but it's also better visibility, and you maintain your relevancy. I think that everybody's going to be getting into tools like this and heading this direction. I feel like CyberCNS is just trailblazing this area right now. There will be competitors that come along, I'm sure, as well, but this is the future of one of the new areas you have to compete on as an MSP.